What does it mean to live more with less? I'm Katie Wells, and welcome to the Maximized Minimalist Podcast. If you found yourself caught up in the hamster wheel of modern-day motherhood and want to rewrite the script, congratulations, you're in the right place. I'm here to be your guide and help you take back your motherhood and achieve a simpler, more joy-filled life. Cheers to being a maximized minimalist. Enjoy the show. Hey there, before we dive in, quick question. Are you already dreading the holiday gift clutter? That feeling of, where is this all gonna go? And the stress of spending hours trying to come up with the perfect gifts? That's why I created my clutter-free gift guide, which has over 75 intentional gift ideas organized by age and occasion, from birthdays to holidays to graduations. And for toddlers and grandparents and everyone in between, you can quickly pick gifts for others, or better yet, even use it as a wish list for yourself. I designed this to save you time, reduce your stress, and help keep your home clutter-free. Plus, there's a bonus gift calendar to help you stay organized and avoid the last-minute chaos. All this for just $3. You can head to katiejoywells.com/guide, and let's make gift giving easier and more joyful this holiday season and beyond. Caley Kukla, welcome back to the show.
Hi, Katie Wells. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for coming back. I love anytime we get to chat. And I know my listeners do too. A lot of my listeners have gotten to know you through the years. And today's topic, I think, just is coming at the right time for so many of us, managing holiday overwhelm and these different stress relief strategies that we can do for us as parents and kids heading into, I think for a lot of people, right, the chaos of the holiday season. There's a lot of beauty that comes with it, but also a lot of busyness and rush and all the things. So I'm really excited to dive in with you today.
Same. And I love how you threw us parents in there first, because isn't that what you and I always come back to as well? And that's why I love your work, is simplifying our life, and just how when we simplify our life, it truly does have an incredible impact on our children. It's so important. So I'm excited to be here.
Good. So, kicking this off, what would you say are some practical ways we as parents, right, starting with the root of it, us, right, can regulate our stress levels and help our children do the same if we know, and I know, and I felt this too, like you're kind of anticipating your stress to rise. And because of the anticipation, like your stress is already going up because you're like, I got to get these gifts. I got to do this. I got to do this. Whatever, I got to travel. I got to book tickets. I got to keep my kids on schedule. I got to the million things we have to manage. Where do we start?
As you're saying that, I feel the stress response in my body.
I know, just thinking about it.
I feel my heart rate. I feel my chest getting tight. I feel it in my body. And yes, I can so relate, because even if we do simplify, right? Even if we do say no to some parties, no to every volunteer opportunity that comes our way, it's still so, like you were saying, just pulling off a family trip, that's a lot of coordinating that we do. And typically, that falls on mom. I mean, for the most part, right? So yes, I've developed, I didn't really think I'd go down this rabbit hole, but I have a practice that I kind of made up for myself, and I've streamlined it and created a tool for my community members. And it's called the one thing practice. One thing. And when you feel your brain going through the to-do list and over, and this, and then this, and then this, and then this, and then you just start going, right? You just start doing because there's so much to do. You gotta stop. You gotta just pause. And I know, especially in parenting practices, people are like, what is this pause everybody's talking about? Everybody talks about this pause. Yeah, this is a great time to practice it. Stop, brain dump, make a list. I have a notebook. It's right next to me. I can hold it up, but no one can see it. I call it my beautiful mind journal, where I just brain dump everything in it. And then I say, okay, one thing. What's the one thing I can do first right now? And that serves me the most in this moment. So a part of this too is doing a self-inventory of do I need anything right now? Sometimes I just need to go empty my bladder. I just need to go to the bathroom.
This is real talk right here.
It's
not in our to-do list, but hello, we have to take care of ourselves.
But think about the sense of urgency. This is ridiculous. It sounds ridiculous, but this was such an eye opener for me, especially when I had an infant and a toddler and you're just going so quickly, so fast and going through the motions. I would get really dysregulated and have this huge sense of urgency and get really frustrated and annoyed and become reactive with my kids. And then I'd stop and I'd go to the bathroom and all of a sudden I'd realize like, oh, I had to pee. There was a literal like internal sense of urgency in me. And once I took care of that, all of a sudden I could come back, take a deep breath and go, okay, you want water. I'm going to get you water. And then I'm going to do, and that's the one thing. The one thing is bathroom, water, flip the laundry, whatever's on your list, make the phone call, like just breaking it down into those simple one at a time tasks and saying, you know what? I can't think of booking the plane tickets right now. Because what happens is we open the app. If you're like me, you have your favorite airline app on your phone, like I definitely do. I open the Delta app and I'm in there and I'm looking at the flights and then a kid needs something. So I put my phone down and I forget about it. And then I've wasted all that time. And then I go help the kid and then I try and come back to it, but I've got to redo all of it and then go back. Like, no, one thing. Right. And so when we start breaking it down one thing at a time, and the act of compassion is I give myself permission to do one thing at a time. And that's actually more efficient. Multitasking is not really multitasking. It's constantly shifting your attention, which is exhausting. It's constantly starting one thing and stopping, starting, stopping. That mentally is exhausting for our brains. So that's a long answer to a very simple rule that I have for myself called the one thing practice. And it has just been so key in helping me practice self-compassion, being realistic with myself, being present with my kids, and combating overwhelm in reality.
That's so good. It reminds me. So even if we're staring at this to-do list, again, a lot of these things lead to great things that we love about the holidays. So I don't want to negate that.
Right.
It's almost like, yes, there's a lot to do, but almost I picture like grabbing a highlighter and being like, well, what's the one thing I need to do in the next hour or even just today? And similar to decluttering, right? You're breaking it down into manageable, sustainable, bite-sized chunks. One thing that I tend to get caught up with, and I've gotten so much better over the years, is that I notice if I don't do those basic things you talked about, using the restroom when I need to, drinking enough water, feeding myself, and go back to my default, which is I'm just going to power through, or 10 more minutes on this project, or I'm just going to send an email quick before I do this.
Yes.
That anxiety builds throughout the day. And then my to-do list impacts me a lot different. It hits different compared to just doing those super basic essentials in a timely manner. And you feel it, like, just like we talked about, like you feel it. And by the time the kids are home and you get around to these tasks, I almost feel like the anxiety, right? And maybe we should talk about Inside Out too. We love that movie. We saw it together. It's like, I'm trying to help you like pay attention to your to-do list so we can like prepare. But it's like, you're right. Like my brain is so far gone at that point and I'm ineffective. And then I see myself setting myself up for failure, but it's almost like a impulsive, like, but I feel like I got to be doing something right now in order to get ahead. You know what I mean? Like that frantic energy. I always go back to that Inside Out 2 anxiety character now in my head. And
because they nailed it.
Taking control of the computer.
And like moving it hyper speed, hyperdrive. But in reality, she just makes everything worse in the movie. Like she just, Yeah. And as you were saying that, it's so incredible to me, and your listeners, like our listeners can't see it, but your shoulders were going up and your face was getting tense. And like, that's what our body does. It's what it does. Everything comes up and gets tight and we can't help but be reactive. And then we're, constantly snapping at our kids and getting irritable, and maybe our partner, and like it spirals like anxiety does in the movie. It spirals out of control. Okay. So
how do we not get to that point?
Yeah. So oh my gosh, there's so many things. No, but okay. The one thing is really helpful. And then what I want to go back to is you started by saying, when I don't take care of myself, when I don't meet my own needs, Here's what I want to throw out there. And there's a book called by Dr. Pooja, and I'm blanking on her last name, but it's called Real Self-Care. And it's like going beyond bubble baths and candles or whatever, yoga, whatever. It's a great read because what she does, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know other people taught this. This is amazing information. Like everybody should be aware of this. Is we hear self-care and that has been monopolized by people who want to sell you.
100%.
And this is something you speak out against so much. And I love you for I love you for so many reasons, but this is one of them. You know, they want to sell us the candle. They want to sell us the oil. They want to sell us whatever. It's like, that is not real self-care.
Yeah.
That's not what it is.
That's
real self-care.
Monetizing self-care.
Right.
Capitalist
and it's
culture
like,
at its finest.
Get out of here with that, because all you're doing is you're trying to give me one more thing. You're trying to give me one more email to delete in my inbox, one more thing I need to restock and reorder. Like, no, get out of here with that. What real self-care is prioritizing our core values, which is something you and I have, I think we speak about it every time we talk.
Yeah.
Every time. Knowing what is truly important to us, right? What makes us tick, what our big picture goals are. And more than that, getting in touch with meeting our own needs. What do I really need in this moment? And I'll give you an example. A few weeks ago, I was in like just a really tough spell with my third child, my youngest, my baby 1-year-old. He was having this pain. We couldn't figure it out. We were going to these specialists and therapists. Like, it was rough. And I realized I got like an emergency doctor's appointment with him. He's fine now, by the way. We figured it out. Like, he's good. But we got this emergency appointment with this specialist, and I had to like get him in the car, let him nap on our way there, meet with the specialist, and then go straight from the specialist to a therapist. Like, it was wild. And I was getting, like you were getting just now, like super tense and I was just super stressed, sleep deprived, like all that. Realized I was starving. And I said, okay, I could power through this, like you were saying, power through this, eat the granola bar in my car, go to the doctor's appointment, go to the therapist, and then maybe have time to grab something at Starbucks on my way to pick up the other kids from school. I would have been totally calorie deficient, totally hangry by the time I had all 3 kids in the car. So what I did is I had to get a little creative to meet my needs. I was like, okay, I can call ahead at this restaurant, which is 3 minutes away. They have really great, nourishing, like bowls, you know, with rice and lots of veggies and meat. I'll pick up one of those and I'll just eat it in the car while he's sleeping in the parking lot of the doctor's office. I devoured that thing. So I was so hungry. And just feeling my belly fill up, my blood sugar level out. Yeah. I was able to walk into that doctor's appointment, which I was already on edge about because he had been having a really rough time, much more regulated, much more curious, able to have better dialogue with the doctor, ask better questions. So all that to say, even in the most stressful times where there's so much on our plate, doing self inventories, which is just a self check-in with yourself, like stopping for a moment. There's that pause again, stopping for a moment and saying, okay. And I made myself a list, and I used to have this on a Post-it note, and I used it so much. I made a handout for my community members. I was like, here, if you can't even think about this and do this for yourself, here's something you can print out, because I get it. I've been there. So I used to have it on a Post-it note. Now it's like a PDF printable, but it was like, do I need to pee? I mean, we talked about that already. Like, how long teachers are notorious and nurses do this notoriously too. Like, you're taking care of everybody. You don't take care of yourself. Do I need to sit down? Like, sometimes resting is just, I would force myself to sit at the kitchen table with a glass of water and drink some water. It sounds so silly, but just taking 2 minutes to meet your own need for a moment, then you are able to show up and cater to other people's needs, like your children who truly are dependent on you, without so much resentment, because you've taken care of yourself for a little bit. And now you're more able to take care of others without squashing your own needs. There's a way to do both. And I'm not going to paint the picture that it's easy. It does take some creativity, like I had to do the other day about scheduling the nap time, calling in the takeout, getting it to my car. You know, like sometimes it doesn't look like we think it should, but it still matters. It's still important.
Mm. And like you said, there's like the mental release, almost like a valve that has all this pressure behind it. And then you release the valve a little bit and some of that steam comes out, right? And it's not like you're emptying it all the way and going back to baseline, but those little self-care, I picture it like, okay, move the valve, open the valve, open the valve. Yes. And then it just keeps you, right, more
from
baseline.
Exploding.
Yeah. From exploding. And I think I'll speak for myself, from anxiety taking the lead, right? And then it's just, we all know how that ends.
Yeah.
Overstimulation, I feel like, really ties into what we're talking about, but also the holidays, right? Like lights, events, activities, travel for a lot of us. So how can we stay on top of like the overwhelm and stimulation? I think, again, it hits us too, but we tend to see it more, I think, in our kids, like, oh, they're tired, or, oh, everything gets thrown off, sugar, diet, all that stuff. So how do we stay on top of something like that and still, like, play into the fun of the holidays? Because we're still going to go see the Christmas lights or still go do the things, right?
Yeah, I love, let me just say, I think my answer has changed. So I have a really unique perspective, I think, because I have big kids that are the same age as your kids. So I have he'll be 10 this holiday season. His birthday's in November. So an almost 10-year-old, a 7-year-old, and then I have a 1-year-old. So I will say that my perspective and my approach to this has drastically changed now that I have 2 big kids in my world. Those are big kids, being early childhood. And I have a toddler now again. When I had a toddler and an infant, or a preschooler and a toddler, it drastically shifted how I approached those things. Like we did, if the light show was at 9:00 at night, there wasn't anything in the world that would motivate me to keep my baby and my toddler up. Like, nope, sorry, we're not doing that. So our traditions have become a little more predictable, a little more flexible with older kids. So I just want to speak to like moms in both arenas. If you've got little kids, again, checking in with yourself, checking in with your kids and figuring out, is the payoff worth it? Sometimes the answer is going to be, yeah. Like, this is really special. What an incredible opportunity. This could give us some really beautiful moments. This might be our last Christmas with this relative. Like sometimes it is worth throwing other things out the window to prioritize something. Absolutely. Other times it's not. It just depends. So that leads me to, this is such an individual question, because what helps me escape or regulate or decompress will be very different for other people. So something I've found, I'll give my example and then kind of some general self-reflection questions. What I've found to be really helpful is I love reading. I love stories. I'm not in a phase in my life right now, having a 1-year-old again, where I can sit and read a book. And sometimes podcasts just don't hit me the same way as like a really good fiction novel does. So, man, I lean on my Audible subscription so much.
Oh, same.
And while I'm folding laundry, or maybe while you're wrapping presents, or when you're like, I get lost in the story while I'm doing those things. During nap time, my big kids are playing, they can play independently, right? It looks differently for your phase of life. So that's something for me that helps me focus. I get lost in the storytelling and that connection. Like, that is a regulating activity. And I've just discovered that over the years. That's become really important to me. Other things that we know, there's scientific chemical stuff that help complete the stress cycle, help lower the overwhelm, are like cathartic releases. So that's things like laughing. So yelling is a cathartic release. So remember there was that meme going around, or that article going around, right, during like COVID times, where moms met in a field and they just all screamed. Do you remember that story?
No.
Oh my gosh, it cracked me up. Well, it sounded so silly, but like we were in such stressful, unprecedented, how sick were we of hearing we're in unprecedented times? I'm like, yeah, of course we are. We're millennials. That's like our tagline. These moms met in a field and they just all screamed together. And screaming, like, there's science behind that. Screaming is a cathartic release. It uses stress cycle. But of course, we don't want to scream at people we love. So scream into your pillow. Or laughter has the same effect. So finding ways to laugh throughout your day, finding ways to have inside jokes. Like my kids and I have inside jokes with one another. My partner, my husband and I have inside jokes with one another. My sister, we were just talking before we started recording about texting our sisters. We both have sisters, inside jokes, and how we just kind of laugh about it. Like those things matter because it does relieve some of that stress buildup, which is what builds up when we're feeling overwhelmed. So those are just really concrete examples. But I think for someone who maybe is listening and saying, that's not me though, I don't get that, or I don't find that enjoyable, or I don't like that. It's really about knowing what overwhelms you. So is it noise? Is it constant busyness? Is it feeling like demand fatigue, overcommitted? Like what really gets you? And looking at the day and saying, okay, I know today is going to be a back-to-back day. And then having a plan for when I get in the car, is that a time where I can like go through a drive-through and treat myself? And that's not about the treat. It's not about giving yourself like, oh, that's self-care, right? Monetizing self-care. It's more about giving yourself something to look forward to and allowing you to like lean back in your seat and take that breath and just be still. Just be still for a minute. I used to do that when my kids were really young. And the only way I could keep them still was strapping them in the car seat and going through the Starbucks drive-through and then just pulling in a parking lot and like sitting and drinking my drink for 5 minutes and or the driveway and just being still.
I think
knowing my kids were safe.
You brought up a good point that got me thinking as you were just talking is having that list, right? Of like, here's what I can do to like lower anxiety or lower stress or lower overwhelm and kind of like regain and re-regulate myself. And then, like you said, kids typically follow suit. Not always, but like it starts with us. As much as we like, how do I do this to my kid? How do I make my kid do, X, Y, and Z? It's like, let's do a little self-reflection here, but like having that list out, because I feel like when we get to that point and we're trying to access those tools, as simple as they are, like using the restroom, drink of water, have you sat for 2 minutes? I can't access that because our brain is in survival mode. So I think what I'm going to do, my takeaway so far is I'm going to make a list of all those things, especially in the holiday season, but also a list of like a proactive list of what tends to overwhelm me in the holiday season and what I can do to integrate these simple practices in, whether I'm doing that activity or not, right? Whether I am going to the light show and I am tired, here's what I can do. So that's what I'm going to do. I think that's really, really important. And it's so simple.
Well, and so you're a core member, I have a whole handout on the 6 different things of stress cycle release. So like physical activity, human connection, like all like laughter and play, all those things, and then examples, and then room for people to write in your own, because that's the beginning of the plan it is going to look different for everybody. And getting to know yourself is so important, which is why things like taking self inventories, doing self check-ins. And it's so funny, Nick, my husband and I laugh about it because when we worked together, I'd always have like a million Post-it notes on my desk. Well, I needed things right in front of my face. So early on in motherhood, when all of these practices, like I was fumbling through trying to throw myself a lifeline, I would keep these Post-it notes on the dashboard of my car. I would keep them on my bathroom mirror. I would keep them on like the kitchen cabinet of cups that I constantly open, because I needed it right in front of my face, or else it was going to go to the wayside. And I just want to say, if someone's listening and that's their takeaway is like, okay, I'm going to make a plan. I'm going to make a list. I'm just going to be more aware. I'm going to be curious about myself and start noticing these things about myself. Please know that you can do all the things and chaos can still happen. You can still feel overwhelmed. So regulation isn't about never feeling overwhelmed. It's about when you start to feel overwhelmed, being able to notice it, label it, and then take action accordingly. So anticipate feeling overwhelmed. Like that's going to happen. And then feel confident that, okay, I know what to do when that happens.
Versus, hey, here's a perfect plan to prevent.
No,
that doesn't happen.
It would be really great if it did. And yes, it can decrease. Absolutely. It can decrease it when we're intentional. It can help. Dude, life is like unpredictable and it doesn't go according to plan with children. Like
Never.
Sometimes when it does, everyone like once in a blue moon, when it does, you're like, oh, whoa, well, that was really nice. Celebrate that. But don't think that you're failing when that doesn't happen, because you're not. That's just life.
I hear from students time and time again, and I felt this way too, not so much in years past, but like a common theme that so many of us go into the holidays with is like, oh, we're going to have so much fun. We're going to have so much like downtime and relaxation. The kids are out of school. And then, December 26th or whatever, January 1st rolls around and we're like more exhausted than ever. And I know you've hinted at like, hey, we need to make sure to like do these things and take 2 minutes. But like, how do we prioritize downtime? I mean, is it going back to core value and literally like just being more intentional with our scheduling so that we don't hit the new year like more exhausted than ever? Or does everyone feel like like, what do you think?
Ooh, I don't know if everyone feels that way. I mean, I definitely have in the past. I'm trying to think. I can't count last year because I had a very little baby. So I feel like that's just like that season of life. But I'm trying to think back a few years ago to like, I don't remember. It's all a blur now. So how to schedule. So I think of these things like rhythm. Let me just throw this out. Rhythm is very regulating.
Yeah.
Just pro tip. Okay. So some music, cathartic release, like if you certain jam out songs or strong rhythms, and I can never say this word, but anthem songs where we're like powering. I love like Greatest Showman songs or whatever, for that. Great soundtrack. And that's because rhythm is very regulating to us. Our bodies like rhythm. So thinking of your schedule like a rhythm, and you can do a fast rhythm. You can have a boom, 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 boom type of day, back to back, back to back, all these activities. Then maybe the next day you have a slower rhythm day. Or maybe you have a fast paced morning and then we're going to slow that rhythm down. Just thinking of it as a rhythm. There's no perfect formula for every day. There's no perfect schedule for the week. That's going to be so family dependent because look, some families, some children thrive better. They're more regulated when there's more things to do. I have that in my house. I have one kid that would stay at home and read his books all day long. Like that is his jam. Another kid who wants to know, where are we going? Who are we meeting? Who are we playing with? Like he needs that. You know exactly who I'm talking about.
I do. I totally do.
We talk about this all the time, guys. So for me, balancing that is sometimes I strike the balance great. And sometimes I've got one miserable kid. It just depends. Like it just depends. But thinking of it as a rhythm and our bodies like rhythm and having it regularly, predictably kind of at a pace that feels manageable for us. So if that means we go at a super fast pace and then we slow it down, or maybe we have, 2 things and then we have a break during the day and then another 2 things. It just depends. Depends on what family life is like.
I think that's a really good way of putting it. I think my go-to tends to be like, I don't know. I feel like I get overwhelmed easy when there's not necessarily by rush, although that in it of itself, but too many activities. For example, I've been in a season for the last 2 years with my boys where they've been in no sports, like no after school, anything. And that's just the season we're in. They're not asking, they weren't interested. And very recently we signed up for jujitsu and it's twice a week. It's really, it's 1 hour right after school, but I feel overwhelmed just by that. And I'm like, well, this doesn't seem normal. It's just literally one activity. We're not rushing. The boys are enjoying it. It's not like I'm having to push them into it and like there's stress around getting them there. So like, why do I feel overwhelmed? Is it because part of my day is just now taken? Like I'm not rushing to make dinner, like all these things. So I can't understand in my head why I'm overwhelmed by one simple thing. I'm like, how am I going to go into the holiday season?
Like, how long have you been doing that thing?
Just
how long have you been doing that?
3
right.
weeks.
So you're still adjusting. It's still an adjustment period.
And I'm going to should all over myself. I feel like I should be like, why is this an issue for my brain?
So you have these expectations that this should be no big deal. You should be able to get a new life routine without any bumps or discomfort, you're being stretched a little bit now. You're just being stretched a little bit now. So and I know you and I we move our bodies every day. We both have a fitness background, right? So think of it as like yoga or stretching or whatever. In yoga and in stretching, you always want to go to the point of like discomfort, but discomfort you can breathe through. You never want to go to the point of pain, right? But if you're not a little uncomfortable, you're not expanding. You're not gaining anything from that, right? You're not getting more flexible. If you go to the point of pain and you can't breathe through it, you're going to hurt yourself. Like, don't do that. So you're in a period of expansion and just giving yourself permission to lean into that and breathe and know that you're going to look back on this time and be like, oh yeah, remember when I thought it was tricky to get the kids like to jiu-jitsu twice a week? And you're going to be like, now it's no big deal. Or, right. It's finding that rhythm. And I'll say that I think something that even in schools, in my line of work, that I find a lot of people forget is the first 6 weeks are just about routines, just about getting to know. So you've been doing it for 2 weeks, give yourself a few more weeks, but that's going to put you right in the middle of the holiday season. Then you'll have that down and you'll shift into managing all the holiday season stuff.
I think I bring up that example too, because I remember, I felt in the past similar, like, it's like, we get to do this fun holiday activity, but I get it's like, why am I overwhelmed? Like, this is great. This is what I wanted. So there's that. It's like, you see the beauty in it. You see the purpose of it. It aligns, but it's like, I guess maybe like you said, it's just like, I'm feeling like Gumby a little bit, like I'm feeling stretched. That rhythm and routine. And it's just speeding up a little bit at that time of the day. And it's just all about like having to shift. And I need to give myself more permission to just like be good.
Well, and then get curious too and open to it. Like, are there other things that maybe it's not the jiu-jitsu, maybe it's things at home once you get home that are overwhelming? And are those things you can let go? Or maybe, I'll piggyback off of you. Both of my boys play soccer twice a week. And of course, they play in different locations. So my husband and I divide and conquer. He takes one and he coaches that team. I take the other one and the baby. And I have to feed the baby at the soccer fields. Like, he eats dinner at soccer. And then we come home. I have dinner prepped already. I do that once they get home from school, I bring them home and they do all their like after school stuff. I prep dinner so that it's ready once my husband gets home about 20 minutes before me. I mean, it's like
a full symphony, like orchestra. System. Yeah. Like, it's coordinated. It's like passing the baton back and forth. But that alone, just having to do more, and that's maybe what it is for me. There's a lot more baton passing, and it's like perhaps a little out of my control. Oh, that's what it is. That's what it is, Caley Kukla. I have to depend more on my husband. It's out of my control. I'm a control freak. That's what it is. See, this is okay. So we just had a little therapy session, but this is the power of getting curious and like getting to the heart of it. This is what I'm all about, like getting to the root. Instead of shaming myself, like, oh, there's so many other parents who are their kids in a million activities and they like do it just fine without being overwhelmed. And here I am sobbing over 2 practices a week. Okay. But it's the post-event, like rigmarole that I'm depending on other family members to like, okay, so let's speak to that, holiday related or not. Hopefully this is helpful for some listeners. Like, you depend a lot on Nicholas and especially your older boys, to like, hey, you get to homework, you get to do your reading. Like, here's what the next 2 hours look like. But when they're overwhelmed, when they're overstimulated, when they had too much sugar after they won their soccer game and had their soccer party, what then? Then it's like, we look at that checklist because we're stressed out too. And we go, okay, here's it's like, rough. Yeah,
it's rough.
I love it. You're just like, real talk, right?
Because again, I can do all the things. And this is something I worked on in therapy to be like, I was like, I'm doing all these things. Why is this still happening to me? Why am I still feeling this way? And my therapist is like, Caley, like, you can't outthink your feelings, and you can't just assume that life is going to go according to plan. Like, and even when I consciously know that, Katie, even when I consciously know it, I still fall into that trap. And so understanding and getting okay with the discomfort of, I hate having to make quick pivots and change plans and get derailed.
Yes.
Like that really undoes me.
Same.
So if I, for example, and this is such a silly example, but I'm sure almost everyone listening has had this happen to them, where you have a dinner plan and then you go to get the meat that you were supposed to defrost out of the fridge and you realize like, oh my goodness, I didn't defrost the dang meat. Now what? Now I have nothing for dinner. Like what I had planned, I bought all the ingredients. Now, oh my goodness. And that happens to me. So that kind of example, letting go of, okay, the plan was to have this great dinner or this at least like well-planned, well-thought-out dinner. Well, guess what we're doing instead for dinner tonight? We're going to have scrambled eggs and yogurt and fruit, or we're going to have pasta. And I don't really have a veggie side. So eat an apple. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. My kids are like, what? And like, yeah, welcome to soccer life, guys. So I think like just being okay and letting go, I think for me and control freak, me too, also has an overlap with perfectionism. And we have this idea of how we want dinner to, how it should look, right? We're shitting on ourselves, how it should look, what our kids should eat, what we should offer them, how the night should go. And being like, well, it could have gone that way had I remembered to defrost the beef. But I didn't because, and this is where self-compassion is so helpful and why I'm constantly preaching about self-compassion in my community. I'm like, y'all, you got to start there. But being real and being like, you know what? It makes sense that I forgot to defrost the ground beef because I was on the phone with the doctor and then the doorbell rang and then the dog needed me and then the baby needed me and and then I had a work call. Like all these things add up and I was going a million miles an hour. I didn't stop all day. It fell through the cracks. And that's okay. We can do it tomorrow. And as long as they're fed, I have this little mantra on days like that I use, fed and in bed. Like that is the goal. If I get them fed and in bed, that's my parenting win for the day.
And who doesn't, I'm just going to throw this out there. Who doesn't love breakfast for dinner? That is my favorite. So I'm stoked for that. It's my favorite to make for dinner because it's so easy, but I love breakfast.
And if you have bread and eggs, you can make French toast. And that's basically gourmet. So way to go. You're a gourmet chef.
Okay. So you're talking about expectations and I want to wrap up by talking about traditions. Traditions are such, I think, a beautiful part of the holidays, but there tends to be kind of some, whether conscious or subconscious expectations that come along with that. I know in the past we've talked about I had this kind of grand vision for when my kids got old enough to help me decorate the tree 4 or 5 years ago. Do you remember the story? I was here's my expectation. We're going to put on some holiday music. I'm going to be like the mom in Christmas Vacation, in my beautiful outfit. We're going to have the fireplace on and we're just going to be jingle belling through this. And I pulled out the decorations and I handed them to River and he was like, absolutely not. I think he ended up having a meltdown. And I was like, well, this is not how I thought it was going to be. He's like, I'm not doing it. Maybe 4 or something. And I was like, what would Caley do? And I was like, okay, well, you can sit on the couch. And when you feel if you feel like joining, you can. And neither of my kids did anything. And I just did it by myself. But in that moment, Katie 1.0 would have been so mad. I would have dug my heels in and be like, you need to do this. This is an important tradition, And so it was good to release that and give myself permission for it to look different. But how can is that the protocol? Because again, traditions aren't always what we expect. And then there's sometimes expectations from family members. Maybe you have a family member that is expecting you to go to that 9 p.m. light show, even when you have a kid. Obviously, that's boundary setting and conversations like that could come up. But ultimately, I'm curious your advice surrounding expectations, traditions, and sometime in the season, how do we decide, is the return worth it? Is this and I think the question too, is this tradition a tradition because I actually still enjoy it or because it used to be meaningful, but it's no longer necessary right now or meaningful to me? I just threw you 800 questions.
Well, yeah. And so I'm trying to figure out where to start. And I think too that the whole external family or extended family, that's the word I was looking for, extended family boundary setting, that could be a whole nother podcast. Cause like, oh my goodness,
It's a lot.
that is something I get pounded with, the questions around the holidays. And that is something that I have struggled with too. You know, in my personal life we live really close to both, sets of grandparents. And we both have like sibling, he's got 2 brothers. I have 2 brothers and a sister. Like we have big families with lots of yes, I understand all those things. So that can be messy and it can be really uncomfortable. And that's like a whole nother topic. What I really want, I think, to talk about are the traditions. And like I said, I think that this can look differently and change. Like when you're decorating a Christmas tree with a 4-year-old, they don't get it, right? Decorating can be really stressful because there's breakable ornament. They can't reach that much of the tree. The ornaments they're not old enough yet to have any sentiment to the ornaments. Yeah, I mean,
or the tradition itself. They're like, why do I care?
Right.
I'm trying to be like, this is important to me, but they're like, okay, well, I'd rather play with my Legos.
So if it's important to you, own that and be like, I want to make this happen for me. And I think we just had this like epiphany with your curiosity. Something I love about curiosity is the open energy and just having the open energy of like inviting children into these experiences with us. So when you start thinking about now, of course, like driving to a light show, we can't really like invite them into the car and then sit and wait. Like I get that, guys. But I'm talking about little things around the house, like baking cookies or, cooking in general. All different religions with winter traditions have all kinds of cooking aspects to them. Family dinners and gatherings and decoration and crafts. Like, you name it, right? Inviting them in and knowing that children are so incredibly intuitive and genuine with what they're interested in. And I remember having that conversation with you about River and being like, he was expressing he genuinely didn't get it.
Yeah.
Like, what was his connection to that? Now I bet that he's older and he's probably been gifted some ornaments over the years or maybe made some ornaments over the years. And there are memories. He's old enough now to have memories attached to those things. I bet he would enjoy it a little bit more and maybe only hanging up the 3 or 4 ornaments that mean something to him. Because he's still only 9, he's still only at that. So understanding where our kids are coming from, and they are unfiltered because they're just so authentic and genuine beings. And they're going to tell you what really means something to them and what doesn't. And for us to learn, okay, this means something a lot to me. I can't force that on my child. But you know what? One day when my kids are older, and I'll give you an example of this, it didn't mean I had no investment of it when I was a kid. But now that I'm a mom and I recreate this dish, okay, this family dish, I never helped my mom. Actually, my aunt was always the one that made it at every Thanksgiving. Okay, so that's how it was passed through my family. It's my aunt's dish. And she made it. I didn't even like it as a kid. I never put it on my plate on Thanksgiving. Then I started dating my now husband. And I made it, and like he and his brother, it's their favorite dish ever. Like I bring it to their family gatherings too, because it's their favorite, sweet potato crunch. And now I've turned it into, my kids love it, but we call it Gruffalo crumble based on the Gruffalo book.
I love that.
Right?
That's
it's
so
got
great.
The crunch.
Yeah.
Right? They wouldn't eat it if it was sweet potato crunch, but they love Gruffalo crumble. From the Gruffalo books, right? So that's how I made that meaningful to them when it wasn't even a family tradition that I cared about that much. But now that dish is so nostalgic. It's so meaningful. I love making it. P.S. It's really easy to make, which is another win. And now it's this fun little tradition that we have with our kids around the holidays, a dish that they expect to see at the table. So it can be something small. It can be something that is organically, one day my kid just misspoke and called it Gruffalo crumble. And now years later, we still call it that.
Wow.
And that's one of the most meaningful things. So I think you've already talked about managing your expectations.
Yeah.
And then really paying attention to What is something that is meaningful to you? Do it. Invite your kids to participate, but they may not. And then pay attention to what your kids really love and what they pull to, and then lean into that with them. And then let go, family dinners, like those are really hard. The adult dining is an adult activity, not a child activity. So that's where we need to really, really think about our expectations there.
My boys, Levi still loves Lego. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe if he's not interested in decorating the tree, and I'll ask him this year, I always invite, maybe we could build a Lego tree, like a Lego tree. Like that is a way to create possibly a new tradition and meet him where he's at.
There's so many great like YouTube video. I don't know any off the top of my head. Sorry, listeners, I can't like give you that. But there's incredible YouTube like creators and stuff. And how meaningful would that be to have you or Andrew sit next to him and decorate a Lego Christmas tree, or have him make it and him decorate that while you're decorating the tree. And then you share your projects with one another. Like that's really meaningful.
That is beautiful. That gets me excited.
Right.
And excited for him too, because I love when you can kind of naturally create, and he might poo-poo it. I doubt it. Right. I think he'd totally be excited about it, but it's a great way to still extract what we love about traditions, but shift them so that they work for our season, they work for our kids, they're meaningful. And whether or not he, has a family of his own and is making Lego Christmas trees with them when he's an adult or a parent, he might, but it's like, still creating that meaningful moment now. And I think for the holidays, that's what we crave, that connection, that joy, that just like my heart is warming thinking about it. Like in the same way, talking about our to-do list can stress us out. Just like picturing Levi and I build a Lego tree, like I'm like in tears. I'm like, oh, my heart, and that I think is so important to like be intentional about and think outside the box, right? I used to be, just like we talked about, like it has to look this way, but it doesn't. And parenthood teaches you that real fast, but then we still try to push against it. Well, no, everything has to work out this way. And it doesn't.
It doesn't. And I think what you just brought up is, I want to highlight it because I think it's a really beautiful note to end on for listeners. You said, I feel it, like I feel the warmth in my body and my heart. Like it feels so much different than talking about the to-do list. I saw your body soften instead of, I saw it like rise up and tense, and I just saw it soften on the screen for listeners. Meaningful traditions. Kids won't remember every little detail that they did, every little thing that, how everything looked. They'll remember how it felt. The emotions it evoked in them is what they will carry with them, and they will try and recreate the warm, fuzzy stuff with themselves and their families or their, friends when they get older. And I have very stressful memories of the holidays, and there are things that I don't do because of that. The warm, fuzzy memories I have, those are like, I know it sounds really silly, but like my dad always read us The Grinch instead of 'Twas the Night Before Christmas.
I love that story.
My kids get Grinch PJs for Christmas. Like that has turned into a family tradition for us as well, because that was such a warm, fuzzy memory from my childhood. I remember how it felt. When in doubt, that's what really matters most.
That's beautiful. Where can my listeners connect with you? Because you've got all the ways, so tell them.
Well, I mean, maybe they should just come to Asheville and me too, and we can all hang out.
Yes, in-person event. I've truly been thinking about that for years. So yeah, I would love that.
Same. We both will get to a season in our life where we can make it happen.
That's right.
Okay. So find me on Instagram, Caley Kukla. I'm there. I just launched a new community, soft launch. Katie is there with me. The core community, it's this great place where all the things are access to me, access to the community, like-minded parents.
Yes.
I don't like focusing on tips and tricks, but there are simplified versions of these big ideas to make true impact in your relationship with your kids. Because once again, that relationship, when we boil down all the parenting advice that's out there and overwhelming, it's about the relationship, centered on relationship. Yes. So it's the core community. But yeah, find me on Instagram, CaleyKukla.com. I'm around, and hopefully bringing my podcast back soon because
I'm waiting.
you'll be my first guest back. How about that?
I love it. Well, thanks so much for coming to hang out with us, give us your wisdom as usual, and talk about these really important aspects. And again, I just want to hit on something you said, that it's not about like, hey, jump through these tubes, make these lists, and then everything is like unicorns and rainbows, and parenting and life will be easy and the holidays will be nothing but amazing. I love the real conversations. I love the realistic strategies. I love the hitting on we need to get curious. We need to offer ourselves self-compassion. We need to put us as parents somewhere in the mix, when it comes to, taking care of everyone. And I think that so easily we just get lost. And I think there's so many powerful reminders, the tradition aspect, how we can lean into that and be maybe a touch more creative and shift our expectations through the holidays and through taking that past the holidays. Like, I have my River's birthdays in February. So I'm constantly like, hey, what traditions are still serving birthdays for our family, and what would River enjoy for his birthday or for other holidays in the year? So I think it goes well beyond the holiday season. So I can't wait to hear what people think. And thanks for being back on the show.
It feels good to be back, Katie. I took a long maternity leave, but man, does it feel good to be back. So thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks for hanging out with Caley and I today during our holiday season chat turned pseudotherapy session. And if you're already feeling the pressure of holiday gift clutter, make sure to get my clutter-free gift guide. It is here to help with over 75 gift ideas for every age and occasion, all without adding to the pile up. With a bonus gift calendar to help you plan ahead, you can avoid the holiday stress and rush and give gifts people will truly appreciate, all for just $3. Grab your copy at katiejoywells.com/guide and step into the season with intention and ease. We're here for it. You know what to do. Ready, set, simplify. And I'll see you next week. Bye.